Did you know that embers from a wildfire can fly over 1 mile and can smolder for days before starting a secondary fire? It only takes one ember to bring wildfire to your home. Learn about defensible space and how you can make your home more fire resistant at readyforwildfire.com.
You know, when I get up and speak in front of people, when I'm doing this work, you know, what we often refer to as social justice work, I like to, I take some notes on what I want to say, but I'm not real scripted. I don't really do anything real scripted, you know. Part of that is because in some ways I'm a little lazy. But in other ways, it's cultural. The spoken word in my culture is huge. I come from a culture of people, both as an African American and as an African of the diaspora, that we are very much auditory people and musical people. So we learn and we teach through the word, language, speaking. And so that's how I roll. So, and I also wanted to say thank you all for having us. And thanks Rev Kev right here for having us. Yeah. So I have this shirt on that I love. I love wearing this shirt. And, I put it on for a purpose today, to be able to talk about this thing of culture, you know. I've gotten into, in fact, I went outside to take care of my nasty habit of smoking before the service, and tobacco, none of the wacky tobacco. And there was a white guy that drove by in his car, and he was smiling at me, and he was pointing to my shirt, and he was like, yeah, you know. And, I've had lots of conversations with people about this shirt, and all really good conversations, and mostly people say, that's a really neat shirt, you know. And then some conversations would go on to say, one of the typical responses is, hey, that's a really cool shirt, but if I wore one that said, I love being white, boy, would I get in trouble, right? And my first response to that is, yeah, that's probably true. That's probably true. What I've attempted to do with people is to engage the conversation a little further. And so one of the things that I would ask people, and I've never been real successful in getting people who consider themselves to be white to take the conversation a little further. But I always try. So one of the things that I say is, if you did have that shirt and you wore it, what would it mean to you to say that I love being white? Can you name it? What does it mean? What is this thing we call whiteness? So see, for me as a black person, that also, by extension means African descent, But in terms of my particular experience here, being an African American, there is a definite culture that goes along with being black. It's demonstrated in language, it's demonstrated in the food, it's demonstrated in the music, it's demonstrated in dance, in all these different ways that blackness is tangible as a culture. I ask white people sometimes, what would it be like if you were to say, I love being Irish? See, that's a culture. Irish people come from somewhere. They have particular things that they do that are about the Irish experience. If you come from Hungary, so on and so forth. If you're Italian. I mean, most of us, when somebody says, I love being Italian, they can relate to that right off the bat, whether they're Italian or not. They understand. Well, because we all love Italian food, right? That's cultural, right? So we can understand where people are coming from when they say something like that. And we can connect it to a geographical location. We can connect Irish people to Ireland. We can connect Italian people to Italy. Can somebody raise their hand and tell me where white land is? Where's white land? Can you show it to me on the map? So it begs the question, what is whiteness? Where did it come from? When did we start calling all of you immigrants white people? And who decided to do it? And for what purpose? See, these are the questions that we need to ask. How did I want every person here who considers themselves to be white. And see, I'm trying to change my own language because I understand now through my studying that the term white is a construct. It's a construct. White people don't actually exist. It's an invention of the elite who run the world that sought to establish social control for a group of people that they were bringing in from outside of these shores to be their slaves, which included all of you who consider yourselves to be white. You know, we have this story, history, which I call his story. It's always the story that those who are in charge want you to know. That's what history is, unless you do your own studying once you've been indoctrinated in the American school system. You have to go outside of that in order to get an authentic, real picture of who we are and what the world looks like. And if you don't do that, your education is sorely lacking. So we've all been miseducated. White people have been miseducated about who they are, and black and brown people have been miseducated about who we are and our contributions to the world. So we all need a re-education program. That's the real truth. If you really are serious about being dedicated to ending racial oppression, it's important that you understand that you need to re-educate yourself. I needed to re-educate myself as a victim of oppression. There are lots of things that I learned about who I was and who my people were according to the history that I've been taught, which was very little. Most of what I learned about people of the African diaspora begins with slavery. There's no mention of the fact that it's African people that brought civilization to the entire planet. That African people are responsible for the sciences, math, astronomy, astrology, all of those things came directly out of Africa and were given to the rest of the world. Had I known that growing up, my life would have been a lot different growing up. Things would have been a lot different. I would have walked with a different kind of sense of self. So it's really tragic that black and brown people didn't get to hear the truth about our contributions to the world. If you really want to know about that part of history, study the Moors. The Moors is just another word for black, in case anybody doesn't know. But study the Moors when they came over into Europe in 711 at the beginning of that period, and they brought culture to Europe. Europeans didn't even know what soap was yet until the Moors came. They were 99% illiterate until the Moors came. So it's important to balance the scales and tell the truth. And we have to uncover the truth and be willing to be uncomfortable in the process, you know? So anyway, I always invite people who consider themselves to be white to really look at, where do you come from? What is your cultural heritage? And learn to appreciate that, because, see, one of the things that has hurt white people the most is having to give up culture to become white. Having to give up cultural identity to become white. And why did you have to do that? Because there were bennies that came along with it. There were bennies that came along with it. Because the term white, by the way, was not introduced into the general English lexicon until 1664. That's the first time that you see the term white in any kind of legal document, 1664. And it has its roots in, because so many immigrants were being brought across into the colonies. And yet you had native peoples, you had some African people. That's another big myth that people don't understand, that Africans came here starting with the slave trades. Africans had been circumnavigating the globe for hundreds of years before Christopher Columbus ever got here. So we've been here forever. We've been here for a long time. Yeah. So that's a part of the study that needs to happen. People need to see that. So part of what happened with all these immigrants coming into the colonies, there needed to be a way to separate and differentiate those who were coming from Europe as slaves. They were chattel bondservants. This idea of the pilgrim didn't exist. Didn't exist. They were coming over as slaves. In fact, there's a book that I think everyone should get. This is the author is Jacqueline Badalora, and this book is called Birth of a White Nation: The Invention of White People and Its Relevance Today. So I want to read a little something out of this. And this is referring to Bacon's rebellion, when during this time in history, whites and non-whites alike all had the same social standing for the most part. They were all bondservants in some state of servitude or slavery. So they worked side by side, they ate side by side, they intermarried, and there wasn't this concept born yet of difference based on skin color there just wasn't that wasn't a widely held idea yet. It had to be created. And because the ruling elite needed to be able to establish social control as a result of these rebellions that would happen where, native people, African people, and these European immigrants would band together against the elite to protest their enslavement. So what needed to happen was they needed to find a new way of social control. So they introduced the anti-miscegenation laws in 1664. So that was the beginning. And in 1681 in Virginia, that law expressly stated for the first time the word white, that no white person, male or female, could intermarry with anyone of African descent in particular, not just natives, but in particular anyone of African descent. And so racism has been written into law since the very beginning of the founding of this nation. It's very different from colonialism that was exported to other places where you had cultures that had been there and living and thriving for hundreds, if not thousands of years. Here, it was written into the very fabric of this country's existence, which is one of the reasons why it's so hard to see, because it's always been here. We've never known anything else. We have never known anything else. Where in other places, like where they had the huge slave rebellion in Haiti, where they kicked the French out. See, they had been having their culture forever in Haiti. So they weren't having it. They said, no, it's over. We're done with this. And they gave them the option, leave or get your head cut off. Most of them left. They even gave them food and weapons and said, go. The ones that stayed, because they were done, you know? So many nations, you know, have a much different experience with racism than ours. Ours was built into the fabric of our country. So when I think of things like what can we do? Or what can you do? And also, I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge that perhaps not everyone in this room identifies as white. And I just want to acknowledge that. I think that's very important, because even those who may look white don't necessarily identify that way. You know? So what can we do? Re-educating ourselves is the most important thing that I see. It's a shame to me that, you know, my kids going to school, they're still dealing with the same thing that I dealt with, and it's even worse. It's even worse now. My daughter came home from high school in an honors history class with this section that they were doing on the KKK, and it read like a poem of, you know, like just some naughty boys. Told nothing of the history of what the Ku Klux Klan was about. Nothing, you know, and the fact that we are still in a place where, you know, the history of African peoples begins with slavery. What kind of notion does that put in someone's head about a people? That their history has always been about enslavement and oppression. You know, we still refer to the land of Egypt, or Kemet, as I call it, which means the black land. That was the original name given to it by its people. We still refer to that as the Middle East, as if it's not a part of Africa, so as to disassociate black people with that great history that belongs to us. We were the kings of Egypt. The people that occupy that land now didn't come until well after those pyramids were built. That is not their land. They're foreigners. So education is really, really important. Being willing to re-educate oneself. Being willing to be uncomfortable. And to piggyback on what Bill said, being willing to acknowledge that we have all been brought up in a system that tells us things are a certain way, and it's not true.
One of our goals as an agency is to bring that awareness that in our community there's still needs out there for firewood, especially in the senior population, and that as together as a community, we can meet that need.
Each year gets a little harder and a little harder, but just seeing this, I feel like one of the lucky ones.
Got back from a house down in Penn Valley. They had 2 huge apple trees. We gleaned 286 pounds.
We are at Interfaith Food Ministry. They serve 8,000 clients every single month, and every one of these families can come twice a month and they get a full shopping cart of groceries.
I've stood in those lines, and fresh fruit and vegetables especially are amazing. And it's been so much fun. I mean, it's just fun.
If you have fruit trees in your home, give Sierra Harvest a call and we will get the volunteers to come and glean for you on a day that works for you. If you want to be a gleaner and be a volunteer, there's also an online application.
Election officials work hard to maintain the integrity, security, and privacy of elections in Nevada County. Every registered voter in the county will receive a vote-by-mail ballot in the mail. Have you ever wondered what happens to your ballot when you send it in? Returned ballots are received at the elections office where they're processed and counted. Each voter's ballot envelope has a unique barcode that gives you credit for voting. This ensures that each voter can only vote once. Every signed ballot envelope is compared to signatures on file for the voter in our database. If your signature matches, your ballot moves on to the next step. If your signature is challenged, you'll be notified and given instructions on how to correct the issue. The two most common reasons a ballot envelope is challenged are the envelope isn't signed or the signature doesn't match the voter's record. A challenged ballot will be counted once the problem is corrected. You can check the status of your ballot at mynevadacounty.com/elections. When voter signatures are verified, ballot envelopes are opened and the ballot is removed, unfolded, and prepared for processing through scanners, which total up the votes. Results are tabulated and released after the polls close on election night. When you vote by mail, you can be assured that your vote counts and that your ballot is both secure and private. If you have any questions, contact the Nevada County Elections Office or visit us online.
Ever since the first moment we got together, I think farming was what we both wanted to do.
We researched pigs and found the Mangalitsa breed.
We fell in love with the way they look, that they're not genetically modified, they're a Hungarian breed.
It likes to go out and forage for the roots and the grasses and the acorn.
They get to do whatever they want to do here. Within the boundaries of the fence line that they have, they've got acres and acres to roam on and just lay in the sun, go sit in a mud puddle, come eat if they want to.
We spend an hour or two probably with the herd every day, just walking fence lines and checking feed. And
saying hi and rubbing bellies and just making sure everybody's safe.
they're very happy pigs, that's for sure.
Having a heritage breed pig says that you're dedicating yourself to something that takes a lot longer and that you're really caring for the animal. It is really completely different than anything else you've ever eaten pork-wise. Oh, what I love about the Mangalitsa pork is actually the fat content that it has. That fat just makes the meat taste so amazing. You want to get a little bit of it in every single bite that you have. Hi, I'm Ellen.
And I'm Jesse, and we're Cosmic Roots Ranch.
Hi there, I'm Katrina Schneider, and I'm a river scientist and river skills teacher, and I also love to play at the river. 12 years ago, started doing some camps that teach people what we call river literacy, how you can read the water so you can understand where it's awesome places to play, what the river's doing, but also you can find the really safe spots and you can basically read the water. So I'd love to give for you all the main gist of what we cover in those camps. The areas that we'll cover here right now are to look, grip, and protect. The first concept of look. We are so blessed here at the Yuba. We have these incredible waters where you can see the bottom, you can see all around you. Incredible visibility, wonderful with a mask and snorkel. But it's super important when you're playing that you're actually looking for other things too. Wherever you are, whatever you're going to do, we all have different choices of what we do at the river. It's super important you scout first. So if you're tempted, you're one of those people who likes to jump off rocks, you should be in the water ahead of time with a mask and looking very carefully for any obstructions. If you're like me who loves to go under large boulders and these beautiful, beautiful large openings underneath full of fish, then you also want to always look and make sure that it's totally clear. This river is very dynamic, changes a lot. And last year we had very high flows on the river that move large rocks and other obstructions that can end up being in our favorite play spots. So the best way to look and make sure you can be safe in those spots is looking from downstream up first. That way the current can't pull you into anything, and you can make sure everything's in the clear. Point number 2, grip. Again, beautiful granite rocks here. We love to lay on them. They're so soft, they're so nurturing, they're really wonderful. Guess what? They're also, of course, slippery. So when hopping from rock to rock, it can be quite easy to slip and lose your footing. And you might come into a place that actually has a very large hazard or just simply hurt yourself. It's also when we're following a buddy, they've gone before us and the rock gets wet. So when we jump, it's not the same jump that they did. It's super important as you're at the river, if you can move along, use 3 points of contact. Move yourself along as quickly as you need, but it's incredible how much it serves us for our stability. Every year, someone falls and gets seriously either injured or dies simply from slipping on rock. And a third concept, protect. So our bodies, they're bizarrely shaped. I mean, look at all these things coming out. They're just set to get snagged into things. And some of the places we're playing or some of the places we might find ourselves have some rocks that have really small openings and we can easily get what's called entrapped. Even at low flows, it's very easy to get trapped. It's really quite bizarre. So what's important for us, if you find yourself in a situation where you have large moving water or rocks underneath that can have entrapments, you can't see them, it's super important you protect yourself. And what I mean by that is if you end up either accidentally or intentionally in one of those spots, ball up, get those limbs in. Don't be shoving those into rocks. Another very important part of protection is protect each other. Some people are pushing themselves to keep up with others and doing things that are not quite in their body. Some people you might see are just doing things that are just plain silly that can harm themselves or harm others. Super important you carry forward to protect each other while at the river. So great. Thank you all so much for watching this video and loving and caring for the Yuba. And just remember these concepts next time you go down to the river. Just remember to look, grip, and protect. and enjoy yourself. Have a great time at the river and be safe.